It's the role of Muslim women in an institution building. So I want everyone to please take part in it. Remember when Dr. Altaf was speaking earlier, he said men especially have to play a prominent role, right? Supporting their sisters, their wives, their mothers, their daughters. And here is where it can start. So inshallah, let's do that. I will welcome Halim, Sadia, to hopefully do some introduction and then hopefully facilitate the dialogue.
Okay, but this issue I think is very important to me when I saw maybe 3-4 men speaking for every one woman that was in the room. And I think that what you can see is usually what you believe reality to be. And I don't think that's the reality at all. The fact that we're having this conversation at all, I think, reveals how little space there has been historically for youth and women to be able to articulate their needs, as well as kind of create a space for themselves, to kind of draw attention to the things that need to be done in order for the institution to function properly, because it makes the situation uncomfortable. It draws attention to the fact that historically institutions haven't been meeting the needs of the most marginalized groups, and no one wants to have that conversation, especially since then you have to look at, how are institutions set up? Who's at the head of institutions? And it's usually men. not to call anybody out, but I think discussing these things, it's radical and it's challenging, and I think these are the conversations that kind of need to be had. And so, let's talk about the institution of family, which is, I think, the biggest institution there is. And I think without that institution, there's no way any other institution would function. There'd be no nation, because everything that's singular comes from a collective effort. You cannot have a child without 2 people. So everything, I think, comes from that initial institution. And so with your understanding of family, we have to realize that we see that men are the head of households as we've seen them. But that's what you see. They're responsible for caretaking. They're responsible for the survival of the family. But I think as youth, as children, we see how much work our mothers do in the home. And we see how much, I was just talking to Habarit over there, how a crucial part of the institution of nation building that they already are, in the sense that they are the organizers and everything like that, and they also do a youth and stuff like that. But I think we should continue to engage people substantially, actively involve youth, actively involve women, actively involve people who are disabled, people who are of different orientations. Right now is the time the institution of Somali is being built, right? So this is the time to be having these conversations. I think the way things have already been done, there's rules, and there's now the energy is here for change, and I think we can kind of insert ourselves any way we like into that conversation. So let's do it. Let's have a substantive conversation about what women think their role in institution building is, because I don't want anyone to speak for anyone else, and I want to know what everyone thinks about women's role in institution building is, and I want to hear voices, and I want people to speak up. So let's do it. I'm not hearing anything. So how can we sustain our institutions, sustain the institutions of school, family? How can we use our messages to not only educate our youth, but kind of build from them, bigger institutions? If that's even too hard, how do you understand institutions to be, and what do you think women's role in institution building is, as we see it, as we know it?
I think there is a bit of a simplicity in just saying what the role of women is in institution building, or what the role of women is in nurturing the kids, or what the role. I think there is a humanity role in it all. We are human beings, and we all have a responsibility in sort of looking after the kids. So yeah, I wouldn't trade being a woman for anything else. God SubhanAllah, Allah gave us the gift of childbearing. It's amazing. But we humans, both males and females, can nurture our children. So it's not really the domain of girls simply because they carry the babies and deliver them. And I think I just want to say something to, people kind of dismiss or simply say feminist this. It is amazing how the literature have expanded. There is an entire literature, feminist literature, that talks about motherhood. And we talk about gender equity, and when I say we, I'm counting myself as a gender specialist. Gender equity in the sense of being equal but different. So it's too simplistic to sort of say, don't get a job or stay home. Or in today's economy, nobody can afford to stay home. Man, woman, child, everybody should be working to survive. So if we are talking about Somalia, and 50% of the population is women, we need them economically. We need them politically. And women have actually proven themselves the last 20 years without a state, because they really carried the country on their backs, whether they are inside the country selling anjera or whatever it is. There used to be an unknown role for the women when things were all, kosher, in the sense of men being the breadwinners and women staying home and women doing their own business. But when things fell apart, they actually stepped up and have carried extended family, whether it's from mother's side or father's side, or, they're the ones who kept it together. So what is their role in the institution? They already have a role. Where they don't have a recognized role is public decision making. And I think that's where the debate needs to occur. Women have proved themselves. They're good in business. They're good as mothers. They're good in education, no doubt. When it comes to the parliament, and particularly the Somali parliament, who's now under clan lines, then the role of women is marginalized. So if you want sustainable institutions, if you want sustainable, lasting peace, you cannot afford to not engage 50% of the population. It's that simple, for anything to be viable.
Yeah, I think we're back there.
Well, it's quite a discussion, but I will have to agree with Ms. Fawzia for a lot of the things she said. There is clear roles for everyone, but the biggest role and responsibility for both genders is it's your family. It doesn't matter whether work or no work. The first thing that has to be number one in your family is your family. So if that means taking care of, making arrangements, that's fine. In this economy, everybody needs to be working. You can't afford to stay home. If you are lucky and you have a really educated woman in your life, that's actually a blessing. It's not a problem. But the only problem it becomes is when the woman thinks that now I'm educated, I don't care about the family, then that's really a problem. If when the time comes that your family becomes second to your career, that's something that needs to be discussed. But in general, there is no conflict between that. And when you say women has just proved themselves, I don't believe that. Women have always proved themselves in the history, even in the Islamic times. Aisha was a great woman, a great leader for the Muslim society, a great scholar. Khadija was also, if there was no Khadija, I don't think our Prophet, peace be upon him, would have been as successful as he did. And she was a businesswoman. She wasn't a stay-home mom. But
A girl, can we hear from a woman? What it was trying to talk for a minute.
What did you say? Assalamu alaikum again. I think somehow the thing turned into this discussion being a competition between men and women. And also Somali women and men, Somali men. But really, the issue was about Muslim women as a whole. We are part and parcel of the Muslim community, Muslim women. And really, whether we want to acknowledge or not, the reality exists that Muslim women, not all of them, but some Muslim women think that staying home is oppression. That's a fact. And it's not because the Muslims have developed that idea, but it's really coming from outside. And I know that within the United States, I work in Georgetown University, I work at NIH, I work at different places and different organizations. What you see is like when the American woman who's Caucasian, who's not a minority, who is PhD, MD, lawyer, gets married and decides to stay home to raise her kids, she is seen as though she's sacrificing herself for her kids, the future of her family. But when the Muslim mother decides to stay home, she is treated as though she's oppressed. And that's a fact that exists. And whether we like it or not, we need to really acknowledge that and address it. So as a Muslim woman, what do we need to do? Do we say, yes, we are oppressed and we need to get out of the house? Or we need to challenge those who are saying that to us? I think the whole issue really should go back to that, because the discussion is not whether Somali women are better than Somali men. There's no competition. I mean, we know what women do. And in Islam, as Hussein just mentioned right now, Khadija was the pillar of Islam. She was the backbone of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was a rich woman. She spent all her wealth on trying to advance Islam. At the end, they were broke, but still, she was satisfied and she was loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the point where He would send salam through Jibril, and that she would receive all these amazing things. So we need to address that, because I know since I graduated from high school until after I finished medical school, until today, I see a woman who are Western, or women who think that Islam is oppressing women, who look at me because I'm wearing a scarf, that I'm oppressed. At one point, a woman came to me who told me that, so why are you wearing the scarf? Are you oppressed? Is your husband making you? Is your father making you? And then at the end, she ended up telling me that I was a disgrace to the American woman because I was wearing a scarf, to the point where I had to respond and say, that's ironic, because I'm an American woman and I don't feel disgraced. And of course, she had to just leave. So we need to acknowledge that exists. So are we going to really study our deen and talk about our role and include that nurturing the child is it's not oppression, but part and parcel of what makes the society successful? After all, if the woman does not educate these children, who will educate them? Or if the man doesn't educate them? If I don't stay with my kids, I have 2 kids, and believe me, when they were young, I didn't even trust them with their father. It's not because he was not a good father, but somehow there is this innate nurturing ability that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in the woman's heart. It's different. And I really, when Fawzia said, I don't, being woman is, Allah has been good to me, I would never trade anything for being woman. And that's why I need to go out there and show that Islam does not oppress me. Islam does not deny me my rights to be educated. I have every right to be out there. But if I want to choose to stay home and take care of my children, I don't want to be called that I'm oppressed or somebody's oppressing me. I have that choice. And I think I'm older than most of you youth here sitting here, the girls and of course the boys. And I know for a fact that American women or the Western women believe Muslim women are oppressed.
Howard, you had a very great point. And I actually believe that Western women are the ones that are oppressed. Because the reality is, even up until the 1800s, Western women, the minute that they got married, all of their assets, all of their properties was the sole property of their husband. So they left their marriages with nothing, including they lost their last name immediately after getting married.
The term husband, it comes from animal husbandry,
Oh. Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah. So.
Muslims, they say the wife, the zoj, or something like that, they're as equal. But if you want to look at the history, husband basically means.
Oh, here you go.
No, just if you look at the term husband, you see the industry of raising animals called animal husbandry. If you go to agricultural universities, you'll see that, the Institute of Animal Husbandry. So if I just wanted to bring that out.
So, and the oppression is very real on many standpoints, because if you look at the Western women, their marriages are even based on they really don't come to agreements when they get married. As a Muslim woman, the day you get when you decide to get married, you can lay out your terms, your agreements before you enter into this union. And Western women do not have that availability. And so beyond losing their assets, beyond losing their last name and everything that they own as an individual, they are also forced to go out into the workforce and work for economic reasons, but also because that's a form of their personal dignity. For a Western woman, working is what makes her. And subsequently, when they see Muslim women that stay at home, that do not need to exploit their bodies, that do not need to, that can set firm grounds with their husbands before they even marry them, that is, when someone is oppressed, it's very easy to point fingers and say, oh, you're oppressed too, because I'm oppressed and that's how I feel, so I'm just going to point the finger at the next person. You see what I mean? Yeah, so, and a key thing, and when you and Deco were having your discussion, is you two were on completely different pages. And I totally understand where you're coming from. That narrative is one that young Somali men are starting to see, where they see these successful Somali women that are going to school. But I think more or less it's you all that have this mentality that the more educated a woman becomes, the less content she is in the household. And I think you, Somali men, young men, need to open up that dialogue and understand that women are not necessarily discontent with their lives upon marriage. It's more or less that they have multiple avenues in which they can pursue their passions. But men have been trained to think that, oh, naktan waxay soo baratay so immediately gurigay ma joogi karto. It's like she's literally sitting on fire because she's at the house, and that's not true. And yeah, so with that being said, Muslim women are not oppressed. They have had the most rights throughout history, and that is, my end point.
Thank you. Well said. Well,
I just have a quick comment from my personal experience. Before the war, I left Somalia when I was 5 years old, and my parents treated me like, hey, you have to go to school. It was a luxury we can afford. You're gonna go to school. After the war, and there was a limitation, meaning that you're going to go to these certain areas. And so after the war, it became that you have to go to school. You have to get education. You have to get experience. And the limitation, there's no limitation. Before, there was a limitation, or go to this area, because it's safer for you. But now, after the war, from seeing 20 years of women working hard to raise children, putting food on the table, I don't know. I have not seen many men doing as well as women stepped up as before. I don't know. I don't have books. I don't read history of Somalia, but I don't know what was the role of Somali women before the war. Mm-hmm. But after the war, I know you're not going to find it in any books, but the role of a Somali woman the sky's the limit. So, so I just want to say that.
Yeah, sky's the limit.
Okay, so my original viewpoint, I just want to clarify with a scenario. So let's come up with a hypothetical scenario, okay? Farah and Halim have been happily married for 6 years. Okay, Farah and Taqaf, but I just want to just clarify. So they have 3 kids, okay? The mother says, or the wife says, I want to go to school. I want to get educated, or I have 3 kids. I'm really interested in, child development. I want to go to school. The conversation that the man and the woman should have is, yes, you should. The mother says, but I stay at home. I have 3 children. Well, you should still go to school, because all that knowledge will be imparted on your children. So it's not about work or not work or all this or all that. It's about education should be lifetime, especially for women, because of their children. And that's it.
Okay, who's next?
We go to the other side of the room.
Okay, Bismillah, I'll be short, inshallah ta'ala. MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan, my sister and brother, MashaAllah, very good debate that we need, MashaAllah, and a very warm, MashaAllah, and hot debate that is needed here. It's amazing, inshallah. What I want to say is that we all know the quote from Malcolm X, that if you educate a man, you educate one person, and if you educate women, you educate a nation. So that's really the point that he made, and very right. And we cannot have our kids successful in school unless our mothers are educated. So that's very important. And in terms of family issue, also how we live, and our life is totally different from the Western life, even though we are living in a Western country. Because in Western culture, mother and father, they share 50-50. But we as Muslim community, we don't do it that way, because the father is responsible for doing the business of the household. He's the one who's offering and covering the rent, what's needed for the family. And the mother, if she chose to do that, she can stay home and raise these kids. And if she goes to school, it's an asset for the family. And that's really nobody can deny that. So it's very important that our mothers are educated if they need to do that. Otherwise, if they chose to stay home and raise these kids, that's really the noble work that we need also. It's a really great work. It's not belittling, and it's not seeing them as inferior to us. It's a noble work that we need to raise our kids successful and educated, and also raised according to our faith and our religion, inshallah. So that's really very important, and nobody is belittling our sisters, and they are, if they stay home, they're doing great. If they go to school, it's our asset for us.
horta saa meesha u fadhiyo waa cagaarta kow leh dadaa waxay dhaheen dumarkii inay guriga joogaan waaya anigana salka saa meeshaas ugu hay shaarbii xataa ay ugu sii baxeen. Anyway, I'd like to say one thing. You know, it's been a pleasure being here, so I'd like someone to just come here and wrap this up. I've been here since 10 this morning, so let's make it quick. Thank you.
And Adam Bobsi, like, yeah.
Bobsi, topic aan ku jirno bismillahir rahmaanir rahiim waxaan ahay dad muslimiina waxa laga hadlaya waxa weeye gabadha muslimada ah muslimku xagee u dhiga gabadha muslimiinta xagee la dhiga horta hadaa rabtaan inaad ogaataan gabar muslimada noloshay ku nooshahay don't watch CNN and Fox News. Ask gabar muslimada Sheikh Khalid Yasin taas u dha gabar muslimada weydiin noloshaada iga waran. Don't watch CNN iyo Fox News iyo waxa loo jeedaa maaha inaad shaqo waa lagu ogol yahay inaad aan iskuul aadid waa xijaabkan aad qabtid waay taas waxa laga rabo in laga dhigo. Raabica ayaa la weydiiyay waxa la yiri gabar taabicada ahayd nabi ma noqotaan oo sheekh ma noqotaan oo imaam ma noqotaan say wax u jiraan inta waa naga dhalan litir. That's the whole point. Inta waa idinka dhalay.
All right.
Dahab baa ilaahay nisi nabigu wuxuu sheegay nin baa u imaaday dadkii ay u qarban hooyada saddex jeer waxa lagu yiri jannadu waxay ku jirtaa hooyada lagu heedo ninka diintiisa waxa la gabadha kaamish so nolosha dhanba waa idinka socda you see ka cayrsan marka CNN-ka iyo Fox News-ku ilaahay meeshu inay dhigay billahi tawfiiq.
This is so hilarious.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to add a little bit. The question that was asked was, what is the role of public decision for women? I think that was the topic that was asked, and we were deviating it so much. But we have to think outside of the box. We keep saying women are oppressed, this, that, blah, blah. The thing is very clear. The most powerful people in this world, especially in America, let's talk about in America, they are not in the White House. They are behind the curtain. They are the one that's holding the remote, without naming any names. And the women, they can do the same thing just like that. They can they can put all that knowledge they get from universities, from Quran, from schools, from Hadith, they can invest it in their children by being a good mother and by convincing their son to make decision. And as you know, we love our mothers. If my mother tells me, make that decision, do that, I will accept it. And women should do that. And because of that, they will get a voice in public speech.
Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And marka laga hadlayo dumarka muslimiinta aniga hal waxa ugu soo dhacaan hadda ka hor waxa qof uu weydiiyay dumarka muslimiinta maxay haystaan muhram yaa ka jawaabi kara dumarka muslimiinta what Muslim girls or ladies or women have muhram? What's the point behind muhram? But what's the point behind it is what I want to know. Good, thank you. And marka aniga waxaan ku fikiraa I have an analogy aan ku soo qaato markaas oo kale hadaa fiiris dadka mataqaana oo qiimaha leh sida madaxweynaha oo kale ama boqortooyada oo kale kulligood waxaa daba jooga security guard marka gabadha muslimiinta ayada kaasa la geeyey marka qof loo baahay marka daba jooga ka bax.
Wait a minute. Okay, since we're wrapping up, and since we're wrapping up, and since this is a topic about women, I'm not going to be afraid to call out the narrative that is being set right now. You guys need to check your male privilege, because at the end of the day, like, I think women do have the right to decide for themselves what role they need to play. I think that's the way the conversation needs to be had. The role that women can play in institution building is the role that they define for themselves. Okay? So, and she can choose to have children, or she can choose to be like a part of the nation as a whole, but I do think that there is a lot that needs to be taken care of in that end. But I'm going to leave at this point.